Hi guys, today we've got a few random projects to get done. It's going to be a bit of a light day though, because I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I do sound a little congested and I'm not sure if it's allergies or whatnot. We had a ton of rain this past week come through, upwards of like 2 or 3 inches an hour. So we got quite a bit of rain, quite a bit of flooding. So a lot of things have flattened out. A lot of mulch has been moved, but everything has been watered well. So I'm thankful for that. But it did push through some cooler weather. And with that, I think some of the trees may be reblooming or something may be going on, but I don't know. I can hear it in my voice. I definitely sound congested. I just don't know what it is. So we're going to take it a little easy today. We've got a few T-posts that we're going to be using for our tree staking system. I need to get those spray painted. I'm going to spray paint them like a hunter green because they look horrible right now. But we're just going to do like 1 or 2 coats. I don't want them to look all nice and pretty or perfect. I just want them to have a nice green to kind of blend in into the garden beds. Then we're going to be finishing up our onions. A couple weeks ago, we harvested our onions. They've been in the basement curing for a couple weeks and drying down. So they are ready now for us to kind of clean them up, cut off the tops and the roots and get them ready for storage and cooking. And then we have a couple of arborvitaes to replace. We had a couple along our fence line right behind me. We had a couple that kind of just perish. So they're looking pretty sad. So I'm going to replace them. And then I think that's going to be pretty much it for the day. So let's get started. So these are the 3 T-posts that we're going to be spray painting today. You can see that they've got quite a bit of surface rust. They've lost that nice green color to them when they look new. So I've got here some hunter green enamel spray paint, and we're just going to give them a couple coats, kind of just to revive them a little bit, and so they get that nice deep green color. So when we get them into the beds, they'll kind of blend into the background and they won't just stand out so much. So we'll give this a little bit of a shake and get to painting. Wow, that one little coat makes it look so much better. And there's a little bit of dirt at the top and stuff. I am not worried about it at all. If it chips again, I don't really care. I just kind of want it to look somewhat nice when we use them. They look so good. All right, let's get the rest of them done real quick. There. So we've got 1 coat on these now. Give them about 30 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and just do our second and final coat. Okay, while the first coat is drying, we are going to work on our onions. So here are the onions that we harvested a few weeks ago. You can see that they have completely dried down. So all we have to do is come in, cut the tops off, cut the roots off, dust off any little bit of soil that we see, and we're good to go. We've got them ready for storage. I've got a milk crate here and I've got some burlap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take them all out, line the milk crate with burlap, and then as we start to process them, we'll put them in here. I've got 30 of the Cabernet red onions in varying sizes from pretty decent to little itty bitty. And the same thing with the candies. I've got a few big ones. Look how pretty those look. And a few little ones. But all in all, we've got 55 onions combined, which isn't bad considering we had to treat them for allium leaf miners early on, so it did set them back. And while their bulbs may not have formed up as big as they normally would have, we still have decent sized bulbs that we can use and cook with and store until hopefully next season. So let me show you what we're gonna be doing today because it's pretty simple. So this is the onion that we harvested, and we've had them downstairs in the basement letting all of these green leaves dry down because the bulb does absorb all the energy from the leaves, so that's why we let them dry down. Plus it gives the skin a chance to dry, and any soil that's on the outside, you want that dry as well, because if you're storing these long term, the last thing you want to do is introduce moisture into your storage bins, because that'll just help create mold and rot. So all we have to do is just take our pruners, cut off the neck, and trim off the roots, like so. And then using our fingers or a little brush, just dust off any excess soil. And there we are, all ready for storage. Isn't that beautiful? And we started these from seed early or late winter, so it's just amazing. All right guys, let's get these onions processed, then we'll put a second coat of spray paint on our T-posts, and we'll finish up with our arbor placement. All right guys, we've got them all processed and ready for storage. Don't they look beautiful? I mean, look at these. Oh, I'm so excited. We grew these from seed. So I am just going to wrap these up in burlap and put them downstairs by a cool vent where we have our garlic, and we will just harvest off of them or use them as needed. All ready to go. Now we're gonna apply the second coat of spray paint. All right, second and final coat is on. You want to see something exciting? Look, our sunrise bumblebee cherry tomatoes are starting to ripen. I am so excited. These are like little balls of candy. They're so good. Real quick, you can see I've bagged a few more tomatoes all throughout these plants. This is the super sauce, the one that's supposed to be like super huge and able to fill a jar per tomato of sauce or juice. Look how big these are already. They're huge. And these plants are loaded. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tomatoes on this one plant. and they're sizing up pretty quick. Here we've got another sunrise bumblebee. I pulled the tomato that was here because it just looked horrible, planted beans, and I had to cover a couple of them because some rabbits got to them. And then over here we have our harvest moon tomatoes, and look at that. Look how big this one is. Oh my gosh, and you can see they're all just forming up. Oh, I gotta bag that one. But yeah, there's just so many. And I have to show you our jalafuegos because these are loaded with jalapenos. Look at all of these. And this is just one plant. I think there's probably 20 some peppers on this one plant, and we have 4 of them here, actually 5 of them, and one over there that we're gonna have to move because it's not doing very well. But I think it may be time to harvest these and maybe make some cowboy candy in the very near future. Candied jalapenos. If you've never had them, you've got to try them. They are so good and so addictive. All right, guys, so now that we have our second coat on our T-post, we can move on to our final project, which is replacing 2 dead arborvitaes. And here they are. We've got this one over here and that one over there. This one I knew was failing from early on, and I just left it there. This one, I kind of started to see it happening a little over a month ago, but over that 1 month, it just kind of gave up. So yeah, we're gonna take these 2 out and replace them. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the last 2 arborvitaes on this end, because we have that bigger one that we replaced. I'm gonna pop these 2 out and put them in place of these 2. And then we have our 2 arborvitaes in our big blue containers. I'm gonna have to pop them out of their containers and put them back right over here. And it's nice that we pulled a couple aside as spares. I wasn't anticipating on having to use them so soon, but sometimes you just can't predict how plants are gonna behave. Yes, we had a couple die and it's unfortunate, but it's fortunate that we have spares and we don't have to go out and buy more plants to replace them. So what I'm gonna do is replace those 2 dead arborvitaes. I'm gonna plant them a lot higher than initially. So initially we planted them, but everything kind of sank because the soil was so roughed up. When we created the new berm, everything just settled a little too much and we're having issues with drainage. So these 2 that I replace, I'm gonna prop them up about 3 inches higher, and then I'll probably capture some of this footage for you guys to see at the end. But I am unfortunately gonna have to dig every one of these arborvitaes up and raise them 3 inches so we can get the grading and the drainage corrected. Otherwise, we're just gonna be battling this forever, and I was trying to avoid having to mess with the trees, but they've only been in the ground for a few months, so they're not rooted in or anything. They should be fairly easy to pop up. The two big ones that are in the big blue containers, I did bring out the 9-inch auger because the root balls are a lot bigger than the ones that we are replacing them with or that we're moving them with. So I don't think this project is going to take too long. I'll replace the 2. I'll show you how I do that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up from there for our projects. And then I'll leave you guys at the end with some footage of the rest of my raising the arborvitaes. I almost feel like I could link the initial video when we planted them and just watch it from reverse and then forward again, because that's basically what I'm doing, pulling them out, putting a little bit more soil in, popping them back in, and creating a hill around them so the water will flow away from the trunks and they'll be perched until we bring in some more fill dirt about 3 inches higher. But that's okay. Better to have them high than low. All right, guys, so let's get to replacing these arbs. I don't think I've shown you before, but we're having a bunch of random squash plants pop up in the lawn. I've got one back here, right by our blueberry bed. There's a couple on the other side of the front gate and a couple more in our lawn. I think between the birds and the squirrels, they're redesigning our landscape. All right, guys, here we go. All right, let's see if we can just pull these out. Yeah. See that? Not rooted in hardly at all. And I wonder what happened to this. I don't know. I wonder if it just sank and it got buried too deep. Oh well, we're gonna be lifting them up now. All right guys, I pulled the 2 dead ones. Now I'm gonna take these 2 smaller ones that are on the end and pop them in the holes that we just pulled the dead ones from. And then I'm gonna take the 2 from the big blue containers and put them here. Because they're a lot bigger, they're much more this size. I didn't want the heads to kind of be all bajiggity and different sizes. So I figure since we have the bigger size in the back, we'll continue on with the bigger sizes and work our way towards the front if we have to. Hopefully we never have to replace another one. But that way I can just pop these 2 out, put them in, and we'll have the bigger ones towards the back. And I've got some more soil and biotone starter fertilizer. I'm gonna add a little bit more soil into the holes, raise them up, add some starter fertilizer, and get these repotted and perched a little bit higher. So then when we come in with fill dirt, the trees will already be higher and we can start grading from there. All right guys, so I replaced the 2 dead arborvitaes with the smaller 2 arbs that were on the end. I pulled them and popped them in here. And I pulled the arbs from the big blue containers and popped them towards the back. And I raised all of them up about 3 inches. And you can see the difference already between the ones that I just replanted and lifted versus the ones that we initially planted and they sank. Can you see how this one is perched a little bit higher? The soil is going away from the trunk of the plant. And this one, you can kind of see how it kind of just went, kind of like deflated. And the soil is kind of going towards the trunk of the plant. So what I'm gonna do is pull all of the remaining ones up, out, lift them, put some more soil in, and replant them a little bit higher. So in the end, they'll all be perched up like this. So then when we come in later in the fall with a bunch of fill dirt, we can fill in and regrade this whole thing, redo the berm, and we don't have to worry about burying the trunk of the trees too deep because we've already raised them up. And here's the 2 from the big blue containers. You can see I've got them again perched up a little bit higher and all of the soil is sloped down. As opposed to the previous ones, you can see a difference already just between them. So yeah, so we've replaced 4 and I think I've got 16 more to go. And this is not something that I wanted to do. This is kind of like a last resort because again, if we don't get this drainage under control now, the trees are just going to eventually succumb to being below grade with too much water in the trunks, towards the trunks. They're gonna be sitting in too much water and eventually they're gonna rot out. And we're gonna end up wasting a few years of them growing, knowing eventually that is a higher possibility because we didn't get this whole situation under control. And sometimes things just don't work out the way that you plan them to. When we pulled all the grass, we brought in dirt and regraded. We built a berm, but our clay soil just sank too much like when they did the retaining wall, and they ended up moving around so much dirt that the fig tree sank, and we ended up losing the fig tree the following year. That's pretty much what we could eventually have happen with 20 junior giant arborvitae. So while it's not the most ideal thing or the funnest thing to be doing on a beautiful afternoon, it is something that has to get done. So you know what? A little bit of elbow grease now will save us years down the line. And I'm okay with that. It's not a big deal. I'm fine with it. I just want to explain to you guys the whole backstory of this whole thing and why we're having to pull them all out and repot them a little bit higher. But oh well, save us all a lot of time and headache down the line. But what a fun day, you know, I feel fine. I just sound stuffy, but it's beautiful out here. It feels like spring or fall. Our high is going to be 79 degrees today. We're like moderate humidity, 45%, but it feels so much better than the sauna that we've been dealt with for the last month in July. So I'm thankful for that because we are going to be heating up. We have 1 week, this whole week, where we're going to be in the low 80s and in the low 60s at night. I think we were talking about doing a fire pit tonight, which I'm really excited for because I can't remember the last time that we did a fire or sat around a fire in August in Maryland in the sweltering heat, but it's beautiful out. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm glad that we got everything done that we got done today. Painted the T-posts so we can get these trees staked. We've got the losing my balance here. We've got the Carolina Sweetheart redbud that we have to restake. Our crabapple got moved over like an inch in one of our torrential downpours. We had crazy winds and it kind of pushed it over like an inch. And we have the Rising Sun redbud behind me that is kind of tilted that we need to stake. So we got the T-posts nice and painted so they look kind of sort of new. Our onions are all cleaned up, processed, and down in the basement. And we started in on replacing our dead arborvitaes. I still have a green tower boxwood in the front flower bed that I need to replace. Haven't been able to really find one that kind of sort of matches the growth of where they are now. I may have to succumb and just get one a little bit smaller, but I'm not worried about it. We can do that later on in the season when it cools down again. But for now, I'm really happy with everything that we got done. And I will leave you with a little bit of footage of me working on the arbs, raising them up again. And you guys, that is it for our video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.